Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @CuandReview. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Herald, 6th of May. News. Climate and rights groups slam Scottish Labour on Rosebank. By Vicky Allen. A letter penned by climate and human rights campaign groups has slammed Scottish Labour leader for his endorsement of the Rosebank oil field. It is profoundly disappointing, said Dave Black, Energy Apartheid campaign lead, Scottish Palestine Solidarity campaign, that Anas Sarwar is endorsing this disastrous oil field, knowing full well where its profits could end up. Lauren MacDonald, lead campaigner at Stop Rosebank, said quite aside from it being wholly incompatible with safe climate limits, Rosebank could see almost £200 million flow to Delek, a company that is contributing to the ongoing violence and dispossession faced by Palestinians. The coalition of climate and human rights groups, including the Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign and Stop Rosebank, wrote to the Scottish Labour leader last week, urging him to reconsider his position and reject Rosebank. It pointed out that development of the field would see the UK breach its climate commitments. The coalition observes that the Delek Group is an Israeli fuel conglomerate flagged by the UN for human rights concerns in occupied Palestinian territory. The company is listed on a UN database of business enterprises involved in certain specified activities related to Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. The group, including Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Friends of the Earth Scotland, Parents for Future Scotland and Mothers Rise Up, also highlight how little the development would do to help ordinary people as the country enters another period of high energy costs. In the Channel 4 Leaders Debate, Scotland Decides, Anas Sarwar said a commitment was made to respect the licences granted by the last government. We should stick to that commitment, for example for Rosebank and Jackdaw. The approval for Rosebank is currently pending, with decision resting with Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero Ed Miliband. In 2023, Miliband strongly opposed the development, calling it climate vandalism. But following rising energy prices due to war in the Middle East, many voices within government and the industry have called on him to approve the project. But the coalition say that the Rosebank oil field could send over £2 million to Delek Group, an Israeli fuel conglomerate flagged by the UN for human rights concerns in Palestine. This follows new research conducted by the Ferret, which revealed that Rosebank's majority owner, Ithaca Energy, has already paid over £1 billion in dividends to Delek Group since 2020. Ithaca holds a 20% non-operated stake in Rosebank, as well as having stakes in other fields in the UK North Sea and west of Shetland, and is the biggest UK oil and gas company by resource. Delek Group owns just over 50% of Ithaca shares, with the Italian company Eni and other investors owning the remainder. The coalition notes that Delek provides fuel to the Israeli military via its subsidiary, Delek Israel. Delek Group used to fully own and now substantially owns Delek Israel, which in 2020 won a tender together with another company for refueling services for the Israeli Ministry of Defence and the Israeli military. Earlier this year, the Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign shared legal advice to the UK government which warned that it could breach its own obligations under international law. Dave Black said, given Sarwar's comments on Palestinian human rights, his position on Rosebank stinks of hypocrisy. The expansion of illegal settlements is contributing to making life even more unbearable for Palestinians. We should be doing everything we can to defend their rights, not undermine them. Standing in solidarity with Palestine means opposing Rosebank. Recently, the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, said that Rosebank would not change much for the UK's energy security and would make no difference to the price we pay for oil and gas. Approving it would not make any significant difference to the energy crisis, he said. Rosebank was put on pause last year after a Supreme Court ruling which meant that environmental impact assessments, oil and gas producers also have to account for the emissions from burning the fuels they extract, often called downstream emissions. Equinor's updated assessment, prepared after the court ruling, puts Rosebank's total lifetime emissions at about 254 to 250 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent when downstream combustion is included. That figure is roughly two-thirds of the UK's entire annual territorial emissions in 2024, but would be emitted over the 25-year operational lifetime of the field. As researcher Dr. Fergus Green told the Herald last year, the test requires you to consider the emissions, including the combustion emissions from the new project, with those 900 billion tonnes of emissions from existing and planned fossil fuel projects globally, and compare that with the goals of the Paris Agreement, which arguably should be the remaining global carbon budget, which is 80 to 390 billion tonnes. And you can see that those emissions together are going to dwarf the emissions from the carbon budget. Lauren MacDonald, lead campaigner at Stop Rosebank, said Anas Sarwar needs to think far more about the consequences of proving Rosebank and not just heed the self-interested views of oil and gas firms. She also noted that development of the field would not take a penny off our energy bills, and that would make only a minimal difference to our energy security, and it is clear that this project should be dead in the water. Any decision on Rosebank must be made in full knowledge of those financial flows and harms. If Sarwar has any integrity, he will stop listening to the whisperings of oil executives and instead join the cross-party chorus of MPs urging the government to stop this project. On its website, Ithaca describes itself as one of the largest independent oil and gas operators in the UK North Sea by production and resources, balancing meeting the energy needs of the UK with an operating in a sustainable manner. It now owns the entirety of the Cambo oil field, having bought the final 30% from Shell in 2023. Scottish Labour economy spokesperson Daniel Johnson said Scottish Labour is determined to make Scotland a clean energy superpower and bring the green jobs of the future here. We've always been clear that licences granted by the last UK government should be honoured in order to provide certainty and stability in the energy industry. We cannot tackle climate change at the expense of working people, their jobs or their bills. Scottish Labour will continue to support Scotland's energy security, recognising the role of oil and gas, investing in renewables and lifting the SNP's ideological ban on clean nuclear power. To get rid of this tired SNP government, back energy security and make life more affordable. Vote Scottish Labour on Thursday. Last month, Chancellor Rachel Reeves said she was very happy to back exploration at Rosebank Oilfield and SNP leader John Swinney indicated he had softened his stance towards new oil and gas drilling, saying that the Iran war changes the balance of the arguments. However, he noted that on Rosebank and Jackdaw, an assessment on climate compatibility had to be undertaken. Ethical Energy and Daylight Group were approached for comment. By Vicky Allen. Read by Gordon Brown. The Herald, 6th of May. News. Ryanair passengers flying to Edinburgh stranded by Lanzarote checks. By Jodie Harrison. Dozens of passengers missed a flight to a Scottish airport due to problems with new border control procedures, it has been reported. Almost 70 people flying to Edinburgh from Lanzarote in the Canary Islands were left behind after an issue emerged with the Entry-Exit System, EES, which is used to register people travelling to destinations outside the EU. A Ryanair flight in the Scottish capital was said to have taken off, despite 68 passengers still waiting to board. The issue was blamed on a failure in the passport control system, according to local paper The Canarian Weekly, which said sources suggested a wider disconnection issue across Europe, slowing systems at multiple airports. Ryanair confirmed to Edinburgh Live that all passengers who presented at the boarding gate before departure were accommodated and travelled without incident. The new border checks, which have been criticised for adding delays and confusion at airports across Europe, mean passengers need to supply biometric data, including fingerprints and a photograph, to create a digital record. This record will be valid for 3 years and replaces passport stamping. However, questions have been raised over why this system, which affects passengers on all UK flights to Europe, was introduced at the busiest time of the year, with one EU country already opting out over fears of the impact it could have in the summer tourist trade. Ryanair has recently urged governments across the EU to scrap the EES during the busy travel period. The airline wrote to governments in 29 countries calling on them to suspend the new entry requirements. Ryanair's Chief Operations Officer Neil McMahon said governments across Europe are attempting to roll out a half-baked IT system in the middle of the busiest travel season of the year, and passengers paying the price, being forced to endure hours-long passport control queues and, in some cases, missing flights. The solution is simple and already provided for under EU law, EU Reg 2025-1534. Government should suspend EES until September, when the peak summer travel season has subsided, just as Greece has done. This would allow passengers, many of whom are travelling with young families, a smoother airport experience for their summer holidays. By Jodie Harrison. Read by Gordon Brown.
From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 7th of May 2026. From the news section. Edinburgh charity reaches £37 million in funding for veterans. An article written by Rose Moncur. An Edinburgh-based charity has awarded more than £37 million to organisations supporting veterans and their families across the UK. Veterans Foundation has distributed funding to 580 organisations since it was founded in 2016, helping support projects focused on homelessness, mental health, employment and community connections for former armed forces personnel. To date, the charity has awarded 1,493 grants, with more than £5.7 million already distributed this year alone. The charity said its annual grant funding has grown significantly over the past decade, increasing from £50,000 in 2027-18 to £8.85 million in 2024-25. Its main source of income is the Veterans Lottery, described as the UK's largest single-cause lottery. Founded in 2016, the charity supports both national organisations and smaller community-based projects across the UK. Mark Ormrod, MBE, Ambassador for the Veterans Foundation, said, I've seen firsthand the challenges many veterans face when they leave service, and the importance of having the right support at the right time. The Veterans Foundation funds organisations embedded in communities, and they understand what veterans and families really need. Awarding more than £37 million in grants over 10 years is an incredible achievement, but what matters most is the lives that have been changed because of it. Jane Gurney, Chief Executive of the Veterans Foundation, said, "For 10 years, we've backed charities and community organisations delivering frontline services to veterans and families across the UK. As most people move from the armed forces community seek support, long-term investment in the help they rely on has never been more important. As we enter our second decade, our focus is on strengthening the charitable organisations closest to those challenges and ensuring veterans and their families can access support when and where they need it most." That article was written by Rosamund Carr. From the Herald Scotland, Thursday, the 7th of May 2026. From the business section, exclusive, interview, Gavin Rogers, Chief Executive, Highland Broadband. This interview is an exclusive by Ian McConnell, Group Business Editor. Gavin Rogers highlights the role of the Highland Broadband Networks business he heads in targeting a real need across Scotland, and talks about how it has been able to change the day-to-day lives of tens of thousands of homes and businesses throughout rural Scotland. Name: Gavin Rogers. Job title: Chief Executive Officer. What is your business called? Highland Broadband Networks Limited. Where is it based? We are a Scottish-based company with offices in Inverness and Edinburgh. We build full fibre broadband networks throughout rural Scotland, so we work across the entire country. What does it produce/do? Scotland lags behind the rest of the UK when it comes to the rollout of full fibre broadband, with only 71% of homes able to access a fibre connection. This number can drop to less than 10% if we're only looking at rural areas. At Highland Broadband, we look to address this place-based inequality by building broadband networks in areas of Scotland that don't currently have access to full fibre broadband. To whom does it sell? We provide services to both residential and business customers. We provide services to thousands of residents, as well as some of Scotland's largest businesses. How many employees? We directly employ over 100 people within Scotland, rising to over 200 when you include all the staff within our supply chain who are dedicated to the delivery of our networks. What attracted you to your current role? Having spent most of my career working for large telecoms organisations in the UK and overseas, the opportunity to bring that experience into a business that was at an earlier stage of growth was incredibly compelling. I loved the fact that the business was targeting a real need across Scotland, and that subsequently we have been able to change the day-to-day lives of tens of thousands of homes and businesses throughout rural Scotland. What were you doing before? Immediately before this role, I was with VMO2, running their Greenfield fibre build operation. Prior to that, I was involved in projects to improve connectivity throughout Southeast Asia and the Middle East. What do you least enjoy? As an industry, I get really frustrated about how we talk to customers. There seems to be an endemic issue in telecoms where we overcomplicate things using technical jargon. I am passionate that we keep our communication simple, explain things in plain language, and focus on the real benefits that great connectivity can bring to homes and businesses. Ultimately, we are a utility. It should help customers understand in real terms what level of connectivity they need to enable their day-to-day use. What do you consider to be the main successes of the business? We are the only broadband infrastructure operator of scale dedicated to bridging the digital divide throughout the rural and underserved communities of Scotland. When we started our journey, only about 1% of rural premises in the Highlands had access to full fibre broadband. In the last few years, that number has increased to over 50% due to the rollout of our network, which is an incredible achievement. What are your ambitions for the firm? I want us to continue to expand our network and provide more areas with the quality broadband that those living in cities have become accustomed to. The fact that we are connected to over 50% of all rural premises in the Highlands means the job in the Highlands is only half done. In addition, we are looking at other areas of Scotland which could benefit from improved connectivity and plan to start expanding into new areas during 2026. What are the challenges facing the sector and market, and what could be done to overcome or address these? Access to capital remains one of the biggest challenges facing the sector, as large-scale infrastructure projects require significant investment. This has been amplified of late across the market, with distress triggered by underperformance against business plans. That's why I'm proud to lead a business that has demonstrated sustained delivery that is making a meaningful difference to communities across Scotland, whilst also driving investor confidence. Confidence which was reflected in our recent successful £50 million funding round. What single thing would most help? The only reason we build fibre networks is because we believe there is clear demand from customers for faster, more reliable connectivity. Mandating absolute clarity on what full fibre actually is, why it matters, and how important it now is as an enabler for everyday living would go a long way to ensuring customers get access to the products they actually need. What is the most valuable lesson you have learned? Always, and I mean always, sweat the small things. The details matter, and getting the small things right is what keeps the big things on track. What was your best moment? A big moment for us at the Highland Broadband was completing the build of the network in O'Ness in the Highlands. It was our first major project in the Highlands in one of its largest towns. It proved what the team was capable of and set the tone for everything we have done since. What has been your most challenging moment in life or business? The most challenging, and also the most rewarding, has been establishing Highland Broadband as a trusted brand in Scotland. Building that credibility from the ground up, proving we deliver, and earning trust, community by community. Competing against a plethora of established household names has required a huge effort. However, the fact that thousands of customers now trust us to be their broadband supplier is the greatest testament to all the effort. How do you relax? I enjoy spending time with my dogs. I have 2 spaniels who, no matter how busy or intense a week I've had, insist on going out for long walks, which is a great way to unwind. I also enjoy climbing, spending time in the mountains, cycling and snowboarding, anything that gets me outdoors. What phrase or quotation has inspired you the most? I've always liked the golfer Gary Player's quote, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." I think that's analogous to business, where hard work underpins everything. It creates opportunities, builds momentum, and puts you in the position for good things to happen. What is the best book, fiction or non-fiction, you have ever read? Why is it the best? My favourite book is probably Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I enjoyed the irony and absurdities of life it plays on. Apart from that, I've always enjoyed a good John le Carre novel, and I would also heartily recommend E=mc², a biography of the world's most famous equation, which runs through all the science that led to Einstein's theory of special relativity. Where do you find yourself most at ease? I love being back in Ireland, in the Mourne Mountains. I've climbed them all my life, and they formed much of the inspiration for C.S. Lewis's vision of Narnia, so to me they always feel magical. If you weren't in your current role, what job would you most fancy? I think once I've completed the journey with Highland Broadband, I'd love to do something with a charity. Alternatively, if Ulster Rugby were in the market for a new CEO, I'd love to be considered. What countries have you most enjoyed travelling to, for business or leisure, and why? One of the most standout moments in my career was helping to build the first mobile network in Myanmar. On the very first day when we launched the network, we had over 2 million customers connect to the network. Before the network launched, families across the country struggled to maintain contact, something which was made even more challenging during the difficult monsoon seasons. Seeing how connectivity managed to transform people's lives firsthand was something I'll never forget. And that article was an exclusive interview with Gavin Rogers, as told to Group Business Editor Ian McConnell. Gavin Rogers highlights the role of Highland business networks in targeting a real need across Scotland. From the Herald of Scotland, Thursday, 7th of May 2026, Arts Entertainment. Scots author Irvin Welsh teases new Trainspotting instalment. An article written by Donald Erskine. The author of a cult classic Scottish book and film series has hinted at the return of much-loved characters in another instalment. The last big streaming instalment was released in 2017. However, 2 books have been written since, and it now looks as though there's something new on the way. Irvin Welsh's novel Trainspotting was released in 1993, with the film and adaptation following in 1996. The Danny Boyle-directed film, widely regarded as a breakthrough role for then-up-and-coming actor Ewan McGregor, was a critical and commercial success, and is frequently cited as one of the defining British films of the 1990s. In a picture-only post to social media by Welsh, a yellow poster reads, "Renton is back, Spud is back, Begbie is back, Sick Boy is back." The original quartet of characters have remained central throughout the story told thus far. The central figure, Mark Rentboy Renton, portrayed in the film by McGregor, Johnny Lee Miller played Simon Sick Boy Williamson, Daniel Spud Murphy, portrayed by Ewan Bremner, and the chaotic Francis Franco Begbie, who Robert Carlyle brought to life on screen. It is unclear as to what the poster is revealing, whether that might be a new book or film, but it has started Welsh's fans speculating online. Robert Carlyle has repeatedly said he would love to do a third film, but made clear it would depend entirely on the previous director, Boyle, choosing to return. Book, Dead Man's Trousers, released in 2018, brought the group back together in middle age. It follows on from Renton's career in the art world and re-entangles him with Sick Boy, Spud and Begbie in a mix of crime caper and reckoning with past betrayals. In 2019, Oscar winner Boyle ruled out a third instalment of the Trainspotting films at the moment, stressing he will only return if there were a strong reason and story, and that they did not want to make a film that was merely treading water. However, another Trainspotting universe book has since been released. In 2025, Welsh released Men in Love, another sequel to the Mark Renton series, revisiting these characters later in life and further expanding the story. That article was written by Donald Erskine and read by Ian McKenna.
From the Herald, News Section, Monday the 11th of May. Government aid quits as scores of MPs call for Keir Starmer to resign. Written by Nina Lloyd. A government aide has resigned as he joined more than 50 Labour MPs calling for Sir Keir Starmer to stand down after a disastrous set of local election results. Tom Rutland, a Parliamentary Private Secretary, PPS, said the Prime Minister had lost authority and should set out a timetable for his departure. In a statement posted on social media, the aide said, "It is with regret that I believe the Prime Minister should now set out a timetable for his departure and for a new leader to be chosen to lead the Labour Party and the country. I watched brilliant councillors lose their seats last week through no fault of their own." Time and time again, speaking with voters at the doors, I heard little dislike for local councillors, nor for the Labour Party, but the animosity towards the Prime Minister was clear from every voter who was choosing to vote for another party or considering doing so. It reminded me of the reaction I got when speaking with voters under a former leader. It is clear to me that Prime Minister has lost authority not just within the Parliamentary Labour Party, but across the country, and they will not be able to regain it. That significantly impedes the ability of the government to deliver the change that people voted for at the general election. Change that we must deliver. We also have a generational responsibility to stop Reform's hatred and division from taking over our great country. It weighs heavily on me, and all of us must do all we can to prevent this from happening. I do not have faith that the Prime Minister can meet this challenge. It is not compatible to hold this view and continue to serve on the front bench. so I've resigned as a Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and will continue to represent my wonderful constituents in East Worthing and Shoreham from the backbenches. Joe Morris, a PPS to Health Secretary Wes Streeting, and Sally Jameson, a PPS at the Home Office, have also called for Sir Keir to resign. Some 56 Labour MPs have called on the Prime Minister to go. Written by Nina Lloyd and read by Billy Gordon.
From the Herald, Monday the 11th of May 2026, Sports section. Celtic could win Premiership title with unwanted record. By Mark Walker. Celtic could win the Premiership title this season with the highest number of defeats for any team for 91 years over a 38-game season. The Hoops have reduced the gap to long-term leaders' Hearts to just 1 point and would regain their title if they win the remaining 2 games against Motherwell this midweek and against the Tynecastle side on Saturday. Celtic have already lost 8 league games this season to Dundee, Hearts twice, Dundee United twice, Hibs, Motherwell and Rangers. And the last time a club managed to lose as many games as Celtic and still go on to become Scottish champions was in the 1934-35 season when Rangers won it. Rangers won the league that season by 3 points from Celtic over 38 games and lost 8 of them to Dundee, Clyde, Hearts, Kilmarnock, Partick Thistle, St Johnstone, Hamilton Accies and Queen's Park. Celtic did manage to win the league with 9 defeats in season 1978-79, but that was only over 36 games. Billy McNeil's first season in charge saw his side recover after a poor start, and they won the title by 3 points from Rangers, even though they lost to Hibs twice, Aberdeen, Dundee United twice, Motherwell, Morton, Hearts and Rangers. They even lost 4 times in a 5-game spell in October 1978 and still won the title. That article was by Mark Walker. From the Herald, Monday the 11th of May 2026, Sports section. Monday's briefing, VAR gives Gunners a boost, Hammers heading downhill, up Dale. By PA News Agency. Arsenal took a huge step towards securing the Premier League title in a dramatic late finish at West Ham. They did, however, need some help from a very late VAR intervention. Further down the football pyramid, Rochdale got the reward for an impressive season with a hugely important Wembley win. Arteta praises brave officials for VAR call. Mikel Arteta congratulated the brave match officials for overturning an obvious error in Arsenal's controversial 1-0 win against West Ham, which edges them closer to a first Premier League title in 22 years. Leandro Trossard fired Arteta's side ahead with just 7 minutes remaining, before Callum Wilson appeared to deal a hammer blow to the Gunners' championship aspirations and a crucial boost to West Ham's hopes of survival in stoppage time. But after referee Chris Kavanagh was sent to the on-pitch monitor by VAR and then watched an extraordinary 17 replays of the flashpoint, he elected to chalk off the equaliser, with Pablo Felipe judged to have fouled Arsenal goalkeeper David Raya. West Ham were furious with the decision, but for Arsenal it takes them 5 points clear of City and leaves them only 2 matches away from the title. Arteta said, "It was a call from the ref that is very brave, but very consistent with what they've been talking about all season. When I have to be critical, I have been, and today I have to praise them, at least for giving the option to the referee to decide, away from the lights and the chaos, to give clarity to him and make the right call. And when you look at that, the action in that way, it was an obvious error." Biggest VAR moment in history, Neville. Gary Neville felt the VAR system passed its biggest test after a dramatic late intervention in Arsenal's victory over West Ham on Sunday. The relegation-threatened Hammers looked to have snatched a 1-1 draw against the title-chasing Gunners when Callum Wilson struck in stoppage time at the London Stadium. But after a long review and a decision that has significant ramifications at both ends of the table, the goal was disallowed for a foul on Arsenal goalkeeper David Raya by Pablo. "This is an earthquake, a tremor of a moment," said the former Manchester United and England defender Neville. It is probably the biggest moment in VAR history in the Premier League. This is massive. I think it's a foul, but have VAR got the nerve, the guts, the courage to make the decision? This is massive for refereeing in this country. This is too big to get wrong. Moyes sees Europe slipping away. David Moyes admitted Everton's hopes of qualifying for Europe are drifting away after they twice threw away the lead to draw 2-2 with Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. Jean-Philippe Mateta swept in 14 minutes from time to rescue Palace as 2 points slipped away in the visitors' hunt for a top 7 finish. I'd hoped we could get us to a level where we can be competitive again at European level. It's not gone yet, but it's drifting that way for us at the moment, said Moyes. I'm using the word disappointing again, and we couldn't hang on, especially after we were 2-1 up. Our key finishers this season, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, Ilian Nayadi, they've just been going slightly off the ball as far as their finishing goes. Runners-up Rochdale book EFL return. Rochdale produced a dramatic late fight back from 2-0 down to clinch promotion back to the EFL with a penalty shootout victory over Boreham Wood. The Wood look set for glory in the Enterprise National League playoff final at Wembley after striking in each half through Matt Rush and the lively Abdul Malik. Dale, who were denied automatic promotion in heartbreaking fashion on the final day of the regular season, pulled one back in the 78th minute through Tyler Smith, and Manny Dijksterveer's header made it 2-2 deep into stoppage time. Neither side could find a winner in extra time, but Rochdale prevailed 3-1 on penalties after goalkeeper Oliver Watmuff, on loan from Manchester City, saved from Callum Reynolds and Rush before Cameron Cox hit the crossbar. What's on today? Tottenham have the chance to take a huge step forward towards Premier League safety at home to now safe Leeds, as a win would put them 4 points clear of 18th placed West Ham with just 2 matches to go. Millwall will hope to benefit from home advantage as they host Hull with their Championship playoff semi-final leg goalless. That article was by PA News Agency. From the Herald, Monday the 11th of May 2026, Sports section. Rangers star on lack of fight and wrong mindset admission by Blair Mickle. Manny Fernandez admits Rangers have not had enough fight about them, leading to their 3 post-split defeats, after losses to Motherwell, Hearts and Celtic left them 0 from 3 from their top 6 clashes. The Ibrox club are not only out of the title race, but guaranteed to finish third. Despite an obvious initial improvement under Danny Role, there's now anger at how much the team has slipped again. Players are under fire as well as the manager, and Fernandez, who made it into the PFA Scotland Team of the Year, was asked to put his finger on what was going wrong. I couldn't pinpoint an issue. I just feel like maybe we needed to have a bit more fight, he said. I can't say we've been unlucky. I can take stick for it because there are certain moments I probably should have defended better. But there's nothing I can really say about my teammates. I will probably just look at myself, if anything. Asked if he could understand why people would question a lack of fight, he added, yes, 100%. I would totally understand that. We knew it was going to be a fight. There were moments in games where we had to fight. But in football, there are going to be moments where you're going to struggle and go under in the 90 minutes. I feel that as a young team, if we're going to grow, if you're going to struggle, you stick together and all defend together. Then you come out of it, you have opportunities to score. That is something we have to improve on. Fernandez insists Raul has the players' full backing and he's paying no attention to what fans are saying about the head coach. He added, I don't look to see what fans say about the manager, but I know about the manager 100%. I know that he got us through moments in the season where everybody thought the season was over and there wouldn't be a title race for us. I feel like maybe we went into it with the wrong mindset. I back the manager 100%. It's the players who should maybe take it because we didn't do the job on the pitch and it's something we should improve on. That article was by Blair Mickle. From the Herald, Sunday the 10th of May 2026, Sports section. Is Saudi Arabia done with sport? I really hope so. By Susan Eaglestaff, sports writer. A mere decade ago, the future of sport looked decidedly Saudi Arabian. The abundantly wealthy Middle Eastern nation had decided that sport was where it was going to spend its vast wealth, or at least a significant portion of its fortune. And so the Saudi investment began, and it was an investment on a scale that had never been seen before in sport. Any sport in which Saudi Arabia saw some worth to itself was targeted. Football, golf, Formula One, tennis, boxing, even darts saw a slice of the Saudi fortune. The reason for this astronomical influx of Saudi money was blatantly obvious: sports washing. The Saudi government deemed sport as the best method to which transform the country's reputation internationally. The thinking seemed to be that by having a significant presence on the sporting stage, then just maybe the rest of the world would forget or cease to care about the lengthy list of quite shocking human rights abuses being perpetrated within Saudi Arabia. It did for quite a while seem to be working, at least superficially. Saudi became a major player in the sports world, and in turn the country enjoyed reams of positive media coverage and heaps of complimentary comments from athletes, coaches and observers. The positivity may not have been objective, but the Saudis were happy to bask in it, nevertheless. The investment came from the Saudi government-backed Public Investment Fund, with its assets estimated at over $900 billion. Its first real push into sport came in boxing, with several major fights heading to Saudi, including Anthony Joshua's World Heavyweight title rematch against Andy Ruiz in 2019. But the PIF's biggest investment in sport was the LIV Golf Tour, in which literally billions of dollars had been invested by the Saudis, and which as a breakaway golf tour threatened at least momentarily to turn golf upside down. LIV Golf may have been PIF's most costly foray in the sport, but there were many, many more alongside it. From a successful bid for the 2034 Men's World Cup finals to several significant footballers, most notably Cristiano Ronaldo, signing for Saudi club teams, the tennis women's year-end finals held in Saudi, the Formula One races held on Saudi circuits, it seemed for a period that Saudi Arabia was the capital of the sporting world. The money paid the individual athletes in recent years by the Saudis has been truly eye-watering too. Spanish golfer John Ram signed for LIV Golf in a $400 million deal, while several others, despite threats of a ban from their sports major tournaments, scurried off to LIV for huge sign-on fees and promises of mega bonuses. And in football, the recent deal Ronaldo signed with his club side, Al Nassr, is reportedly worth nearly $500 million, with him earning around $3.4 million per week. Every sport which jumped onto the Saudi bandwagon and its athletes profited financially from the partnership, and all that seemed to be required in return were a few positive comments from the athletes and administrators about their Saudi experience and how much they enjoyed their time competing in Saudi, blah blah blah. While few observers believed this Saudi sporting onslaught was anything more than sports washing, there was also no sign of anything changing. Saudi Arabia was well and truly embedded in sport, and it seemed it was going to stay that way. All the signs pointed to an Olympic bid for either the 2036 or 2040 Games, confirming the Saudis' long-term strategy. So it all appeared to be on track for the Saudis until suddenly it veered drastically and dramatically off track. Instead of the conversations being about which part of the sporting landscapes the Saudis are going to inveigle themselves into next, the question being asked, what's going wrong? Almost overnight, everything has changed. No longer is Saudi looking like the future of sport, and instead it seems more likely to disappear from sport than take it over. Over the past fortnight, it became apparent that Saudi Arabia is withdrawing from sport. The first bombshell came in the shape of stories that following the increasingly loud rumours that the PIF was pulling out of LIV Golf, certainly LIV Golf hasn't taken over the golfing world in a way that had been expected, but for it to end so suddenly this season will be its last, was something few anticipated. In a statement, the PIF said the substantial investment required by the event over a longer term was no longer consistent with the current phase of PIF's investment strategy. There's been similarly surprising withdrawals from other sports, including tennis, Formula One, and football. The fallout from the US-Israel war in Iran has been cited as at least some of the reason for the PIF's change in direction when it comes to ploughing money into sport, but it's hard to believe that another factor is the minimal return the country is receiving on its sporting investment. Yes, athletes may talk glowingly about their experience in Saudi, but few observers have been fooled into believing Saudi Arabia as other than exactly what it's shown itself to be over many, many years, and that's a human rights abusing, women oppressing nation. Hosting a glitzy tennis tournament doesn't change its reality. And so what will happen to global sport if Saudi continues its withdrawal from the sporting landscape? The World Cup in 2034 will ensure it retains a presence upon the sporting stage, but without continuing to invest the billions it has to this point, it will return to the insignificance in a sporting sense it found itself 20 years ago. So yes, without Saudi, sport will be poorer financially, but it'll be richer in so many other ways. There's long been a sense of unease about just how blatant Saudi's attempted sports washing through sport has been, and riddling sport of such an obvious attempt to paper over human rights abuses with money will be entirely welcome. Added to that, sports events held in Saudi Arabia are in almost all cases astonishingly soulless. Whilst you can force bums on the seats, you cannot manufacture a love for sport overnight. And that's something the organisers of almost every single one of the events held in Saudi have found out to their cost. I've watched countless sporting events in Saudi in which you can feel the apathy from the audience through the screen. The sooner Saudi Arabia leaves sport, the better for everyone. Fans, athletes and sport as a whole. Sport was a successful business before Saudi's billions flooded in, and it will continue to be a successful business after they remove their billions. And by removing their billions, they'll also remove their sickeningly blatant attempt to sport swash their country's reputation, and that can't happen soon enough. That article was by Susan Eaglestaff.
From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 15th of December 2025, from the Voices section. 2 chats that make me optimistic for engineering's future. Article written by Paul Sheerin, Chief Executive of Scottish Engineering. In search of an antidote to the recent and rather baffling UK budget that missed the mark on jump-starting the flatlining economy, as luck would have it, along came not one, but 2 conversations with members of one of Scotland's engineering success stories. A chat with Zach Thompson, design engineer at MTEL in Howick, and our own 2025 Young Engineer of the Year winner, was always bound to lift the gloom. Nothing raises your optimism more than witnessing the young engineers who reach the finalist list through their sheer talent, resilience and innovation, reinforcing the feeling that if this is our industry's future, then we have every reason to be optimistic. Hearing their personal and project journeys is a privilege, but separating a winner from the group is a real challenge. Zach achieved that separation by doing what his company says comes naturally to him, listening to MTEL's customers and then driving the organisation to find a solution where none exists or the current one isn't the full answer. In a world where we all expect flawless internet without restriction, finding ways to install their end-to-end fibre optic solutions efficiently to the building that requires it is key. In industry speak, this means designing a low-cost, reliable method of installing longer-distance, final-mile fibre to the premises, and this simple summary of need defined the challenge clearly for him. To avoid expensive and bulky equipment, Zach's solution combined changes to the texture of the cable, allowing it to be pushed rather than blown by compressed air to its final destination by a simple driver unit designed to be powered by any handheld battery drill. Designs for the Revolink 3 cable and drop drive pushing machine are now patent pending and have achieved an industry-first pushing distance of 300 metres. I asked Zach what the recognition of success for his project meant for him, and beyond his consistent and continuing modesty, he admitted that he had been surprised and delighted at the reaction and praise from family and friends, along with the recognition and celebration through social media and the local Borders-based press. It means a lot to me, because my path into engineering wasn't the clear and straight path that I saw some others follow. I knew that I enjoyed practical hands-on working, but my first try wasn't the match for me. An engineering apprenticeship with sister company Minetti led to a transfer to MTEL, and I haven't looked back since. These examples of game-changing engineering success that bring economic and societal benefits are gold dust for our goal of celebrating the excellence that exists in Scottish engineering and manufacturing, and rarely get the attention they deserve. This story, like all those finalists that came beside and before, celebrates the individual excellence, as well as reflecting the reality that this always comes hand in hand with organisational excellence too. Warming to that theme, I also talked to MTEL's Chief Executive Tony Rogers, currently based in the United Arab Emirates, as MTEL's global expansion now includes their newest 25,000 square metre innovation and manufacturing facility based there. It brings their total manufacturing footprint to 7 facilities across the UK, Denmark, Germany, USA and UAE, an impressive continuation of their commitment to invest in their people, plants and equipment. I opened the conversation by offering my congratulations for their newest expansion. I also commented that I had been impressed during a previous visit to their headquarters in Howick to hear of the involvement of the team based there, including another young engineer finalist, Ryan Bryers, in their projects to expand to the US and UAE. Did Tony recognise the benefit to the accelerated experience of the team based here as a result? The expansion in global operations has driven our continued business growth, allowing us to be competitive in key markets through location, cost, competitiveness and speed of project delivery, thanks to the pace at which projects can be delivered outside the constraints of the UK, he said. But the beating heart of MTEL is still firmly in our operations based in Scotland, in the concentration of our R&D, engineering and manufacturing resources. And yes, that brings opportunity for the team to lead those projects, but they do so because they are our experts, whether that's Zach working to meet our customers' aspirations or Ryan looking after our manufacturing estate across those locations. Tony also shared that the outlook for MTEL going forward is one where they are ready to reap the rewards of their investment and capacity. Grid infrastructure renewal and upgrade represents a really strong opportunity for our solutions, and the scale of investment that has been outlined for the UK makes that clear. But the UK is not alone in that need to upgrade and renew, and other markets where we have strengths, such as the USA, also have their own programme of investment that we are well placed to compete for. Awards for MTEL are not just for their young engineers. This year, they were shortlisted as finalists in 2 categories of the Made in Britain Impact Awards, one of which was Inspiring Leader of the Year for Solutions Director Colin Kirkpatrick, who just happens to be Zach's line manager. And unsurprisingly, at the top of the organisation, Tony Rogers himself was a recent winner of EY's International Entrepreneurial Leader of the Year for Scotland. It is an impressive journey for a company founded in Jedburgh in 1980 that continues onwards and upwards thanks to an outstanding team and clear, talented leadership. Paul Sheeran is Chief Executive of Scottish Engineering. The article was read to you by Elizabeth. From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 15th of December 2025, from the Voices section. £3 billion outsourcing scandal draining Scotland's public services. Article written by Ros Foyer, STUC General Secretary. A new report from Scotland's largest trade union body has revealed a £3 billion outsourcing scandal at the heart of Scotland's public services. STUC General Secretary and Herald columnist Ros Foyer says the Finance Secretary must stop the rot of profiteering through the services that matter to the public. Next month, the Scottish Parliament will debate a budget that ministers insist will involve difficult choices. It's language we've heard time and time again. While I don't dispute there are difficult choices ahead, Too often that language is an attempt to rob working people of their agency in an effort to present spending cuts as inevitable. But a major new report commissioned by the STUC and written by the Association for Public Service Excellence, APSE, tells a different story. Scotland is not short of money. We're being drained of money via a decades-long model of outsourcing and profiteering within our public services that is now costing us between £2 and £3 billion every single year. Put simply, the money is there for our public service. It just ends up being extracted by multinational companies and private finance. We've all seen how under pressure our public services are. We all know the Russian roulette system of getting a GP appointment or trying to get seen by the dentist. At a time when our NHS, local councils, social care system and schools are all stretched to breaking point, this report lays bare the scale of the leak at the bottom of the bucket. Scotland spends more than £16 billion a year buying services from external providers. Conservatively, about 10% of this, £1.6 billion, leaks out through profit margins. But once you factor in the more hidden forms of extraction, debt acquisition, sale and leaseback arrangements, refinancing gains, head office fees and inflated executive salaries, the leakage approaches £2 to £3 billion annually. Billions that could be funding nurses, social care workers, cleaners, teachers and local government staff. Billions that could be keeping the lights on in community centres, libraries and lighting up our parks to allay the safety of women. Billions that could be used to fully staff and fully fund the services people rely on every day. Billions that could be used to end the pay and pension discrimination that low-paid, predominantly female, outsourced workers face compared to directly employed public workers. Instead, that money is lining the pockets of major investors, private equity firms, and multinational corporations, many of whom are not based in Scotland, do not pay their fair share of tax here, and show little interest in reinvesting their profits into supporting the well-being of communities in Scotland. To any reasonable person, I would imagine this would elicit a sense of outrage and cries that the system is broken. Now, of course, it is. But it's working perfectly well for the people it's designed for, the profiteers. Nothing illustrates this more clearly than social care. Today, 79% of care home places in Scotland are privately owned, many by huge corporate chains backed by global finance. More than 20% of all income in the care system leaks out through profit and financial engineering before a single penny reaches the front line. Profits are made whilst workers, particularly women, suffer the consequences. Women make up 83% of the social care workforce and 74% of council workers. They are disproportionately pushed into outsourced roles where they face lower pay, weaker pensions and more insecurity. Social care workers in the private sector are paid an average of £1.60 an hour less than social care workers in the public sector. It isn't just the workers that lose out either. Service users are negatively impacted too. Staffing resources are significantly lower and complaints are significantly higher in private social care than they are in public social care. The Scottish Government's Fair Work ambitions mean little if our care system continues to funnel public money upwards into private profit while pushing thousands of women down towards in-work poverty. The central myth used to justify outsourcing is that it saves money. The evidence could not be clearer. It does not. In fact, 50 years of marketisation has delivered no reduction in the size of the state, no noticeable tax savings, and no improvement in public service quality. What it has delivered is a fragmented system where accountability is blurred, local economies are weakened, and wages and pensions are eroded. At budget time, the Finance Secretary must not ignore these findings. Every time cuts are proposed, cuts to teachers, cuts to community services, cuts to essential council staff, the Scottish Government must ask itself a simple question. Why are we cutting services when we could be cutting profiteering instead? And we must ask ourselves the question, why are we letting them get away with it? There is no justification for reducing public spending when billions are being lost through outsourcing. The Finance Secretary does not need to make cuts, therefore. She needs to make choices. Outsourcing is a false economy, and it is hollowing out the very services Scotland needs to thrive. Our message to the Scottish Government is clear. There can be no meaningful public service reform while profiteering runs rampant throughout the sector. We must stop the rot. As we approach both the Scottish budget and the Holyrood election, political silence on outsourcing is no longer acceptable. Scotland cannot rebuild its public services on a foundation that leaks billions to private profiteers. If ministers are serious about prevention, about fair work, about tackling inequality, and about building a well-being economy, then insourcing must become the rule, not the exception. Direct public delivery must be the starting point, not the option of last resort. We can fully fund Scotland's public services. We can fully staff them. We can fully remunerate the workers who are the backbone of our communities, but only if we stop the great outsourcing drain at its source. It's time to choose people over profit. It's time to end the extraction economy. It's time for government to make Scotland's public services truly public and put them back in the hands of the people of Scotland. Ros Foyer is General Secretary of the STUC. The article was read to you by Elizabeth.
From Herald, Scotland, 11th of May 2026, from the STEM section of the Business section. Business HQ opinion. AI offers bright future at our fingertips if we reach out confidently. Article by community contributor. As Scotland prepares to launch a new AI strategy seeking to turn innovation into real impact, the nation must be as strong in its adoption as in research, writes Heather Thompson, Chief Executive of the Data Lab Innovation Centre. Scotland has a rich pool of talent and a long and continuing history of innovation. Across its tech and business community, a familiar pattern is playing out. New technologies, including cutting-edge AI, are developed and piloted successfully. Products are ready to scale. However, the journey from proof to widespread adoption at home remains slow and uncertain, with many innovators finding their first major customers overseas. This is not a reflection of Scotland's ability or ambition. The country produces world-class research and a steady pipeline of innovative companies. The task is to close the gap between invention and implementation. As Scotland prepares to launch a new AI strategy, there must be an increased focus towards adoption and scale at home. Fragmented funding, complex procurement processes, regulatory routes, skills shortages, and uneven digital infrastructure can all inhibit progress. For smaller businesses in particular, navigating that landscape can drain both momentum and resources just when speed matters most. There is also a cultural factor. In terms of economic uncertainty, organisations are understandably cautious about investing in new technology, especially where skills may be limited and benefits are not immediate or clearly understood. In a world where AI is expected to boost productivity, innovation, economic growth and public services, standing still carries risks of its own. If Scotland is serious about turning innovation into impact, we must be as strong in adoption as we are in research. That means ensuring businesses and public services have the confidence, capability and support to use new technologies effectively. The National AI Adoption Programme for SMEs, funded by the Scottish Government and delivered by the Data Lab in partnership with the enterprise agencies and the Scottish AI Alliance, is one practical step in that direction. It provides hands-on data and AI support to help organisations understand the value of their own data and apply AI in ways that are responsible and relevant to their operations. Much of this work is not about grand transformation, it is about practical improvements that help organisations function better day to day. AI is not a magic box, nor is it the answer to every challenge. The starting point must always be understanding the problem first and then considering whether AI is the right tool. When applied appropriately, its value often lies in everyday uses, such as improving scheduling, reducing bottlenecks, supporting decision-making, or freeing up staff time. In healthcare, that can mean helping manage patient flow or reduce waiting times. In business, it may mean better forecasting or more efficient use of resources. Trust grows when technology delivers benefits people can see and understand. Demand for practical support is clear. Through the adoption programme, businesses have gathered at rural AI roadshows in Inverness, Dundee and Gretna to explore how AI might help tackle common challenges and strengthen local markets. The message was straightforward. Adoption is not an urban issue or a specialist concern. Businesses across Scotland want to engage, but they need guidance that meets them where they are. Other countries have recognised this. Sweden and Ireland, for example, back national AI centres with sustained public and private investment focused on applied innovation, skills development and business adoption. Scotland has many of the same foundations, but ambition must be matched by delivery. The launch of a new programme, AI Scotland, bringing together government, academia, industry and wider innovation ecosystem, creates a significant opportunity. Its success will depend on whether it supports practical adoption and turns capability into measurable impact across the economy. Scottish Enterprise estimates AI could increase Scotland's GDP by up to £19 billion by 2035. Yet around 3/4 of SMEs are not using any form of AI. Closing that gap is essential if Scotland is to unlock the full value of its innovation. When technology is applied well, the benefits extend beyond economic growth. Through the Peoplehood project with Blackwood Homes and Care, a £12.5 million initiative supported by the Data Lab, data science and assistive technology have helped older and vulnerable people live more independently. Smart homes and digital tools have supported daily living, reduced social isolation and improved quality of life. We see the same focus on delivery in the Scottish Climate Intelligence Service, led by the Edinburgh Climate Change Institute with support from the Data Lab. By combining shared data with practical tools, it helps local authorities move from climate ambition to evidence-based action. What unites these examples is people. Technology on its own does not create progress. Progress happens when people have the skills and confidence to use it well. The next chapter will not be defined by new strategies or announcements, but by what is implemented and the impact it delivers. The next great Scottish invention may not be a device or a discovery, it may be a culture that consistently turns ideas into action and allows innovation to grow here at home. If Scotland gets that right, innovation will not just be something we talk about, it will be something we deliver. And that article was by Heather Thompson, Chief Executive of the Data Lab Innovation Centre.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday the 12th of May from the news section. Disability campaigners protest over subway access in Glasgow. This article is by Nina Miller and read by Karen. Disability rights campaigners have made their voices heard for the second time in recent months over Glasgow's subway network, where only 2 of the 15 existing stations are wheelchair accessible. The recently formed Access to Transport Network organised a peaceful protest which took place outside of Kelvin Bridge Station on Sunday. Close to 50 campaigners were present for over 2 hours and included representatives from the public transport campaign group Get Glasgow Moving, as well as a local Scottish Greens councillor. Network operator Strathclyde Partnership for Transport commenced a major modernisation of the subway in 2011 at an estimated cost of £288 million. Despite improving accessibility being part of the modernisation's mission, only 2 out of 15 stations have been made wheelchair accessible in the 15 years since works began. Whilst SPT have this year confirmed plans to introduce partial wheelchair access to Hillhead and Buchanan Street stations, there is concern among campaigners over timescales and implementation. Protest organiser Ray said of the plans that there isn't a start date announced, and they're only looking at adding lifts to the outer circle right now. It's nearly a start, but we have so incredibly far to go. Of the £288 million modernisation cost, £240 million of the funds come from the Scottish Government. Ray expressed disbelief in relation to the government's national transport strategy, which sets out a vision for public transport as easy to use for all, regardless of people's different needs and capabilities. They told the Glasgow Times, "This vision absolutely is not the current reality. It is almost laughable that they think this is anywhere close to being true at the moment." The demonstration featured chants, signage and leafleting, but did not cause disruption to commuters using the station. Ray said they chose a peaceful protest over a disruptive one because, at the moment, we are looking to spread awareness of the situation and that they are here to have a conversation with SPT. A spokesperson for SPT said Glasgow Subway is the 3rd oldest in the world and still operates and works within a Victorian tunnel system that is almost 130 years old. It was built on a very unique 4-foot gauge and was, and remains, an engineering feat of the 19th century. It is now undergoing only its 3rd major modernisation phase in its lifetime, and we, more than ever, are fully aware of the challenges and restrictions it places on us as we endeavour to develop it as much as we can into a more modern 21st century transport system. The brief for modernisation agreed in 2010 was to overhaul the entire system with new ticketing, new trains, new signalling and communications, and to refurbish all 15 stations on the network for a cost of £288 million. As part of the refurbishment of our stations, we looked at the possibility to introduce lift access at all stations on the network, but it quickly became clear that where we have single island platforms, this is simply not possible. As has been explained in detail to Access to Transport, and which they acknowledged made sense, there are a number of requirements we must meet before we can add lifts to platforms. Most importantly, there must be a suitable location on the platform. This is not possible on any of our single island platforms, which is the case at 9 of our 15 stations. For our double or flank platform stations, we need to be able to run a lift vertically from the concourse to each platform, which must be structurally viable. This was shown to be possible at two stations, Govan and St Enoch, where we could achieve this on both inner and outer circles, so this was included as part of the modernisation programme. The size of the lifts is dictated by the space available. SPT has always committed that it would continue to look for ways to introduce more step-free access at our stations as opportunities and alternative solutions become available. There is now an opportunity to look at a lift access from street level to platform on one circle at both Buchanan Street and Hill Head. A contractor to look at possible designs for this addition at these stations has already been appointed. We are fully aware of the importance of Glasgow subway and that it is the preferred mode to get around the city for many. We also take our responsibilities to help those who require extra assistance to travel with us for whatever reason very seriously. We welcome all our disabled passengers on our service, while also recognising and working within its limitations. Our first priority is always the safety of everyone travelling with us, and at this moment, the only safe way for wheelchair users to access the system without endangering themselves or others is to use Govan or St Enoch stations. Everyone should be assured that we have carefully considered all options. However, the realities of working within our small Victorian tunnel system does mean we are heavily restricted in some of the things we would like to be able to do. That does not mean we are not continually seeking ways around the challenges presented. We're always working to improve access where we can, and when new technical developments enable us to re-look at decisions, as we are at Buchanan Street and Hill Head, and we will continue to do so. That article was by Nina Miller. This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday the 12th of May, from the news section. Keir Starmer under pressure as cabinet split. This is by Andrew Learmonth and read by Karen. Yesterday evening, it was evident that Sir Keir Starmer was coming under pressure with his cabinet divided over whether he should remain in office. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is among at least 3 cabinet ministers said to have privately urged the Prime Minister to consider his position on Monday night, with Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper also reported to have pressed him on a departure timetable. At least 72 Labour MPs have now publicly called for Starmer to go, approaching the 81 needed to formally trigger a leadership contest under party rules. 6 government aides quit on Monday evening in a sign of the febrile atmosphere at Westminster, though Downing Street moved quickly to fill the posts with loyalist replacements. One of those to resign was MP for Cowdenbeath and Kirkcaldy, Melanie Ward, who had been PPS to the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy. It is clear that the Prime Minister no longer has the trust or confidence of the public to lead this change, she posted on social media. The Prime Minister attempted to steady the ship with a speech on Monday morning, insisting he would not walk away and vowed to prove his doubters wrong. The address failed to quell the revolt, with more MPs joining calls for his resignation within minutes of it concluding. Cabinet meets this morning. Junior Health Minister Stephen Kinnock did not rule out that further ministers could publicly call on the PM to go at the meeting, while urging colleagues to take a beat before doing so. Health Secretary Wes Streeting, widely regarded as a potential successor, has not publicly declared, but the resignation of his parliamentary private secretary Joe Morris, who called for a swift timetable to replace Starmer, has fueled speculation he is preparing to run. Last night, 3 more Scottish Labour MPs called for the Prime Minister to quit. Melanie Ward, the MP for Cowdenbeath and Kirkcaldy, Gordon McKee, the MP for Glasgow South, and Maureen Burke, the MP for Glasgow North East. Brian Leishman, Ewan Steinbank, Alan Gemmell and Irene Campbell have also all called for Sir Keir to go. However, not all in the Scottish Labour Party shared their views, with Paisley and Renfrewshire North MP Alison Taylor posting a message online supporting Sir Keir. She posted, "It's wrong not to back the leader, just wrong. This is not the way to go about such matters. Keir needs supported by his team, not to have the knives turned against him." Asking the question who would replace Starmer, one big question is who would replace the Prime Minister if he does indeed step down. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, is an obvious option, and his allies have been resigning from positions and calling for a swift transition, though he hasn't stuck his head above the parapet yet. That use of the word swift is important, because the other big contender, Andy Burnham, is currently unable to stand to replace Mr. Starmer. He is Mayor of Greater Manchester and would have to win a by-election and be elected to Westminster to be able to stand. That's why you'll hear his allies talking of an orderly transition or for Mr. Starmer to set out a timetable to go. That would, in theory, allow their man time to get elected and stand for the leadership. Former Deputy PM Angela Rayner is another option, though she gave a speech at the CWU conference yesterday in which she said the NEC had been wrong to block Mr. Burnham, while not exactly offering a ringing endorsement of Mr. Starmer. Does that indicate she'd be backing the Mayor of Greater Manchester? They are seen as being more on the left of the party, with Mr. Streeting on the right. The Health Secretary therefore might struggle with the members, but it all depends on the timing, if Mr. Starmer goes at all. It's not quite 2 years since Sir Keir Starmer took a landslide victory at the general election, with his Labour Party winning 411 seats. However, that win was always a little more precarious than it appeared, with the party taking a little over a third of the vote, which was up just 1.6% from their crushing defeat under Jeremy Corbyn in 2019. Their support has been described as wide but shallow, with a lot of seats won, but the lowest percentage of the popular vote for a governing party in any general election since record-keeping of the popular vote began in 1830. Mr. Starmer has never been particularly personally popular, with the YouGov favourability tracking putting his approval rating at a high of 33% in April 2022 and most recently putting it at 19%. Since taking office, he's faced pressure from both the left and the right, with the rise of Reform UK and, latterly, Zach Polanski's Green Party. Initiatives such as scrapping the winter fuel payment proved unpopular with the left, as did his messaging on migration and stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Similarly, his messaging on immigration and Europe failed to stop a shift to reform on the other side. Add to that mix the Peter Mandelson scandal and thumping defeats in the Scottish, Welsh and English council elections, and his position looks nowhere near as solid as that general election victory might suggest. Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, has come out with some opinions about this. The Mayor of London has been speaking to the Italian newspaper La Repubblica. Here is what he had to say on Keir Starmer. Last week's elections were a disaster for us in the Labour Party. Today I am not calling for the Prime Minister's head, but a change of direction is urgent. All of the voters to whom I speak say they haven't seen this government deliver on its promises. There's anger, discontent and disappointment. He was also asked by that paper about Andy Burnham, seen as one of the favourites to replace Starmer. He said, "Mayors often have the right skills and field experience to be prime ministers. See the example of Matteo Renzi in Italy. Andy is a formidable politician. He has great talent. He wants to return to Parliament." It was a grave mistake to deny him that opportunity a few months ago. A great leader should surround himself with capable people. That last part, of course, is a reference to his being blocked from standing at the Gorton and Denton by-election. Asked if he wanted to see Mr. Burnham become Prime Minister, he said, "Downing Street is currently occupied." That article on the current situation was by Andrew Learmonth.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Coon Review and to tell your friends about our service.